It was really, really foggy out. Jackie was at work. It was about 5 or 6 o'clock, and she wasn't getting off till like 9 or 10. And she called the house and asked if she could pick me up when she got off work. And when I went and asked my mother, she said, "It's foggy enough. There's liable to be a murder tonight, and you're not going anywhere." Jackie was my very best friend. To this day, I'll be honest with you, I feel like maybe it wouldn't have happened if my mom had let me go that night.
In June of 1985, Jackie Johns has just turned 20 years old and lives in the tiny town of Nixa, a rural cattle ranching community nestled in the Ozarks.
She was just a typical 20-year-old with a bevy of friends. Everyone in the area knew her, and she was a friendly, charming, outgoing young girl.
Jackie worked as a waitress in the Nixa Selborne Cafe. It used to be attached to what we called the sale barn, where they had cattle auctions and so forth.
It was a very casual restaurant. That's where I met Jackie years before. She'd been a waitress there for some time.
A bunch of cowboys. They come in with dirt and probably cow or horse manure or whatever on their boots, and we would serve them. Jackie always served them with a smile. All of us girls probably flirted at one point. Jackie and me both, probably more so her.
Jackie would work at the cafe, and her boyfriend, Cody, actually worked at the sale barn. He was a very quiet type guy, a few years older, in the process of getting a divorce, but it wasn't final yet. And she just fell head over heels for him. Oh, I'll never forget that day. My dad called and he said, "Oh, they found Jackie's car along the highway." And I thought, oh gosh, that silly girl has run out of gas.
I thought she probably had spent the night with someone and just left her car over there, because that was something she would do. She was really spontaneous about just, "Oh, I'm gonna have fun, I'll just go do this."
I get a phone call from my friend Dana. She was at the cafe, and she said, "Is Jackie with you?" And I said, "No." But I could hear something in her voice, and I'm like, "Why? What's up?" And then she's like, "They found her car on 160, and she's not in it." And I lost it. I was just numb.
The call goes out to Christian County Sheriff Dwight McNeil, who was just 33 years old and new to the job.
There was blood that had spattered about the inside of the vehicle. There were a pair of jeans located that had one leg turned inside out. There were some women's undergarments. It was clear from the volume of blood that someone had been seriously injured and or died as a result of the activity in that car.
As the search for Jackie continues, Sheriff McNeil questions her boyfriend, Cody.
Cody is one of the last people to see her before she arrived at the convenience store. So that was extremely important to get him eliminated as a suspect as quickly as possible.
Cody tells police that he was home alone when Jackie went missing, but has few other details to offer.
He's a tough guy. He's a cowboy and a ranch hand, and not the kind of guy that wears his emotions on his sleeve. There was no one to corroborate his alibi, but no one had anything to say about Cody. He wasn't a violent type of person, a jealous type of person.
4 days after Jackie disappeared, her parents get a phone call that confirms their worst fears.
I was actually at my mom and dad's house, and the phone rang, and it was one of my dad's friends. They were camping down at the Lake Springfield, and he called to say they found the body.
Two fishermen had located a body floating in Springfield Lake, which was approximately 4.5 miles, 5 miles north of where a car was discovered. The body was still floating, a nude female, but there was no question of who it was. The autopsy on Jackie's body revealed that she died as a result of blunt force trauma and that she had been apparently raped. There were puncture wounds that were consistent with the lugs that were on the face of the bumper jack. We were also able to recover a semen sample, which was fortunate considering the length of time that she'd been in the lake.
4 days after Jackie's body is found, the family lays her to rest. Desperate for any kind of lead, Sheriff McNeil sets up a hotline for tips on the case, hoping that someone in the small town saw something suspicious that night. It doesn't take long.
Two men who were purchasing fuel on that night at the convenience store had seen a very distinctive pickup truck backed into a bank parking lot directly across the street from the convenience store. It was white over powder blue. It was the 60s model Chevrolet Cheyenne. And this particular truck had custom aftermarket wheels on it. The odds of there being two trucks that looked like that in southwest Missouri at that time were very, very remote.
Neil believes the truck belongs to Gerald Carnahan, the son of a prominent Nixa businessman.
Everyone in Nixa is pretty familiar with the Carnahan family. Gerald's father had been involved in a number of successful ventures, including a foundry that was located just about a mile south of the Sail Barn Cafe. Gerald Carnahan was a very clean-cut, professional-looking fellow and came into the office for his interview as cool as he could be, but professing that he would do anything he could to help the investigation. He knew Jackie. He admitted that in the interview from the Sail Barn Cafe. And we said, we have witnesses who placed Gerald's truck at the scene where Jackie was last seen. He denied that and stated that he was at home.
Carnahan's alibi is his 19-year-old stepdaughter.
We made contact with his stepdaughter, who told us that she and Gerald had been out to dinner on that evening, but it was her story that they arrived back home and Gerald never left the house again, which was absolutely inconsistent with the eyewitnesses who'd seen his truck at the convenience store.
Carnahan also tells investigators that Jackie had briefly worked for his family's business.
She quit. There were allegations that Gerald had hit on her while she worked there and then continued pursuing her after she left.
Then another witness calls in about that one-of-a-kind truck.
And that witness turned out to be Gerald Carnahan's brother. If you drive straight across Highway 160 from the convenience store, the road makes a sweeping curve. At that time, there was a large hayfield on the right, just west of Gerald's parents' home and Jackie John's home. And he saw Gerald's truck parked in that field at that intersection.
The brother says that Gerald asked him not to give this information to police.
We asked Gerald to take a polygraph examination, which he agreed to do, but the following day, at the appointed time, he failed to show up.
Dwight McNeil now has deep suspicions about Carnahan's alibi, with no fewer than 3 witnesses saying his truck was near the crime scene that night. But the sheriff still has no solid proof linking Carnahan to the murder itself. McNeil asks prosecutors to charge Carnahan with tampering with evidence by pressuring his stepdaughter to give him an alibi. The grand jury sends Carnahan to trial on the tampering charge, based on the highly questionable alibi he gave to police. The judge throws out the charges for lack of physical evidence.
A young woman, I think she was around 18, was walking down the street when Gerald Carnahan pulls up next to her and attempts to kidnap her. And she managed to get away, but he is apprehended.
It was really bizarre because, if you're Gerald Carnahan, everyone in town knows who you are, and he attempts to kidnap an 18-year-old in a part of town that was not at all secluded, and he wasn't even alone. A friend of his was driving the car, so it was really a strange situation. I think there was a sense that he considered himself untouchable.
He was convicted of the attempted kidnapping, but did not receive a lengthy sentence, just a few years.
DNA is becoming more mainstream now, and we can do a lot more than we could. But because the swab had been in the water for multiple days, it was a big concern that may be for naught, but we decided to do it anyway. So at this point, we start trying to get a search warrant to get a DNA sample from Mr. Carnahan himself. And we told him that we had a search warrant for his DNA, and we said this is about the Jackie Johns death investigation. And I saw a small little tear, right, coming down the corner of his eye.
Sergeant Dan Nash collects the DNA swab and rushes it by plane to the state's main crime lab in Jefferson City.
There was an urgency because Gerald made frequent trips to China. He still had his passport. He had married a woman from China. So we had this great sense of we need to get it done quickly before he has a chance to leave the country.
I think like at 5:30 in the morning, my phone rings, and I remember Jason saying, "We got a match, it's him."
Prosecutor Darrell Moore charges Carnahan with the rape and murder of Jackie Johns. The family agrees to waive the death penalty to shorten the trial, in the hope that Jackie's ailing 83-year-old father will live long enough to see justice served.
And then the judge read the verdict. He's guilty of first-degree murder. He's guilty of rape.
The jury sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
It's not really closure, but I feel like there was justice. Finally.